selectmen of this wonderful town. Is this on? Yep. First of all, before I start, I'd like to thank Katrina for serving as chairman. Running for office, running for elective office and serving on the Board of Education is a amazing feat and something that I really respect your service, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So we're electing a chairman and a secretary.
And the vice chair.
And a vice chair, okay. First, I would take nominations for chair. Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Dan for chair. Yeah, Dan came on last year as, on the executive committee as secretary, and that's my pleasure to nominate him for chairman.
Dan Bennett, okay. Do I have a second?
I have a hand over.
You go.
Yeah, second.
Okay. Do you take
Other nominations.
other nominations? Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to nominate Katrina. And, I'd just say that Katrina's leadership over the last few years has been phenomenal. She's led the board in our district with, cooperation of the rest of the board and the administration in probably the most difficult time that we've seen. She's done it with a lot of grace. She's been, as chair, excuse me, as chair, you need a lot of, calm, particularly over the last few years, dealing with all the challenges that we had. And she was really a great voice for the board during that period of time. And in particular, over the last year, I think she's done a good job, managing us with a lot of new members as well. Excuse me. And, what I think Katrina would bring, and we'd obviously have to suspend our bylaws to have her continue to serve in the position of chairman. But I think she's been great from the standpoint of, working through some of the issues that we've had to deal with recently, sort of avoiding the outside political influences that some people I think have felt, and keeping our district and our community as, really paramount in everything that we do, that she has done as chairman and that we've done as a board, which I think we need to continue to do. And I just worry that, we need to make sure that we keep what we've been doing and what's made us successful as a district. So things like, ensuring that we do all the research that we need to do, that we, bring people in, experts and otherwise, that we need to make sure we do the best job that we possibly can, to me is, super important. And I worry that, we may lose that. And so I would love it if Katrina would serve again as chairman and, lead our board over the next year.
I'm not familiar with your bylaws, but I would think that, does a person have to be an eligible nominee before, would you have to first amend your bylaws to allow her to be an eligible nominee? Because we're in the officer election stage. Who's your
I would
parliamentarian?
say that it's bylaw 9120, and we've waived it in the past. We waived it for Deanna.
Wouldn't you have to do that first before, so make her an
No.
eligible nominee? I don't,
We've always done it jointly.
okay, well, second for Katrina.
So I would like to second the nomination. I think we are really fortunate in New Canaan to have outstanding schools whose success is nationally recognized, and our excellent results derive from hard work, continuous improvement, and a relentless focus on hiring and retaining the best teachers, administrators, and leadership in our school. And we work every day to meet the interests of every single child. I've always worked on a board that's had 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Previously, post our Board of Ed elections, it was never apparent whether a Board of Ed member was a Republican or a Democrat from our discussions. But this past year, that has not been the case. On certain issues, we've had national politics that have bled into our discourse. And while the current board is united on many important topics, there are some key areas that I think are really critical where we're divided. Issues where our views have diverged, have concerned how deeply the board should be involved in writing or shaping curriculum, and the importance of having a robust diversity, equity, and inclusion program. So Katrina has, I think, ably led this board through the pandemic first, and then through the last year through these issues. And, you know, we just need, and we need to keep working on them. She's a proven, excellent partner and a critical friend to our administration, our teachers, and to the community in general. She continues the work that focuses on giving every single child in this district the best education possible. She's worked tirelessly to unite this board wherever possible and to forge compromises that lead us forward. So I've always said that a district that doesn't move forward every year and improve every year soon falls behind. And so I think we need to do that. And we actually even saw in the pandemic when we had to take our foot off the accelerator in some areas that our kids, you know, had minor setbacks, but some setbacks. So we need to continue moving forward, and I just think that we're all committed to great education in this district, and I believe that with her past performance, Katrina is the best possible leader for our board this coming year, so I am delighted to second the nomination.
Can I say something?
Okay, so I don't think we need another nomination.
Well, there could be.
Are there any further nominations?
I just have a comment.
Katrina would like to make a
Open
comment.
for discussion.
Good.
Right. I would just like to respond to the nomination. Thank you, Brendan and Penny, for your support and acknowledgement. I truly appreciate it. And it's been an honor to serve this board. It truly has, and it's been during some very difficult years, but it was thanks to you and others. I came back under special circumstances. This board suspended the bylaw so that I could help with the transition with a number of new board members. And I, in that role, got to know all of you very well. And I would say that given the way that the bylaws are designed and the work that I've done, that I feel it's important that I help pave the way for new leadership on this board and to pave the way for some of our newer members to fulfill those roles and prepare our board for the next sort of generation of leadership and challenges that will face our district. So while I appreciate very much the confidence from board members, I am going to politely decline that nomination and just say that 9 board members got us to this point, and the same 9 board members will move us forward. So I have faith and hope, and I have the belief that we will do all of those things together that we've done this year. And I will do all I can in my power to work with whoever the new chair is to support and continue to move us in the right direction. So I'm confident.
Thank you, Katrina. So,
Sorry.
do I reopen
I'm not gonna
nominations?
make another nomination, I promise.
Okay, sure.
I promise.
Ooh.
I just wanted to echo, Kevin, what you said, and Brendan and Penny, that it's just been a real pleasure to work with Katrina the last year and have her be the chair. And I appreciate everything that she's done through the pandemic and the last year. And I also appreciate her decision to, you know, also leave room for new people to move in. I think that it's just more leadership from Katrina, and I appreciate all of it.
Okay. Shall I take a vote? Or is there no further nominations? Okay. Nominations are closed. And do you vote by raising hands or by taking a call? Okay. All in favor of Dan Bennett as chair, raise your hands. Who's,
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Julie, that's a majority.
Abstain? Or-
Majority? I would then take nominations for vice chair. Dan Bennett?
I'd like to nominate Katrina for vice chair. I would echo all of the positive sentiment that everyone has articulated. I think Katrina served for 3 years as chair through some very difficult times with the pandemic, getting schools back open, and then this past year working with a new board that had 5 members and really seamlessly bringing that group together and getting people up the curve. And so I think her leadership and skill set and all of the great work and stewardship she's provided this district, I think she would be a great addition to the exec team as vice chair.
Do I have a second? 2 seconds. You go. Are there further nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, all in favor of Katrina as vice chair? That's unanimous? Okay. I'll take nominations for secretary.
I have a nomination. I'd like to nominate Erica Schwedel as our next secretary. Erica, as a new member of our board, brought with her a lot of prior experience in the district as former president at the West PTC, and just a lot of involvement in the district and really beyond the schools in our community. And she has shown us to be a very dedicated board member. She spends a lot of time, working with the community and interacting with board members and asking questions. And I think she's done a remarkable job of learning a lot in a short amount of time. And I think she'll make a great secretary for us this next year.
Second for Erica. Dan Bennett. Further nominations for secretary? Seeing none, all in favor of Erica for secretary? And that's unanimous. Yes? Okay. I'm a little blind on this side of my...
That's okay.
Anyway, so that's your election of your officers. Congratulations to Dan and Katrina and Erica. I want to thank you for your service, all of you. This is a very important board in town, and I on behalf of the town, thank you for your service. I would just like to stay for 2 more minutes and make a comment about the West cell tower. We're getting a lot of input from parents of students at West School. We started this process back in June. Actually, Verizon came to us in late April, but I didn't realize it until mid-May, that they wanted to propose to build a cell tower. We've been working on this issue for more than 9 years. As a town, it's a very important issue for us because we need modern cell service. We started a process in June for the Board of Selectmen to begin to consider a lease. But there's a process where several bodies have a role. As you know, the Planning and Zoning Commission had a statutory role to review the location and the property and the plan of conservation and development. The Town Council, I believe next Wednesday, will hold the first of what may be more than one public meeting on the subject, and there will be ample opportunity for public input. Historically, it takes about a year and a half from the proposal of a tower to get to the point of finishing approvals. So we're in like the 3rd inning here. There's plenty of time for public input, and I assure everyone we will answer everyone's questions and make sure that everyone feels like they understand the process. So I appreciate your continued attention and support on having an open process.
Next opportunity for input is the 16th.
16th, I believe they haven't set their schedule yet, but I believe they'll probably have more than one meeting, and the first one will be next Wednesday, I believe. It hasn't been, the agenda hasn't been set, but we're working on the agenda for that purpose. So thank you, and I wish you all well. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. All right. Should I,
Yep, you're going to go there. No,
should we just?
you're going to.
Wait, is this you?
You come here.
Is this me?
That's me.
Yeah, it's you. Okay, I'll get my stuff later.
You should grab yours if you.
Thank you.
Or
Look
here,
at-
I have this one.
Gotcha.
Katrina, do you want this?
Erica, this is for you.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education for November 7th, 2022. First thing we'll do is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to this flag. All right, so I think we added the November 3rd, right? So we're gonna, first thing will be to amend the agenda to include the addition of the November 3rd, 2022 minutes under that section for approval. Can I get a motion? Hugo, second. Bob, all in favor? Julie? Yep. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, and now can we get a motion to review and approve the November 7th agenda? Katrina? Second, Phil? All in favor? It's unanimous. And now to the approval of the minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the October 17th, 2022 minutes? Motion, Hugo. Second, Brendan. All in favor? Aye. And a motion to approve the October 27th, 2022 minutes. Motion, Erica. Second, Bob. All in favor? It's unanimous. And a motion to approve the November 3rd, 2022 workshop meeting minutes. Bob, Brendan, all in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Oh, you weren't there?
Julie and Bob were not.
Okay, so can I get
You
a,
were remote.
Okay, so
Don't have the three abstain.
can we get a motion for November 3rd? Katrina, second. Phil, all in favor? Okay, so passes. Now we'll turn to comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Do we have anybody who would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we can move on to the reports and recognition. And I think the first thing we have on is enrollment projections and staff analysis.
Correct. As Darlene comes to the podium, as you know, October 1st is our date to submit our enrollment to NASDAQ, who we've been using for many years. Darlene will get into the specifics, but we have the report tonight to share with you. All of the materials should have been delivered to your home on Friday, so hopefully you got a chance to take a look through those. And you see why we don't pay for postage or scan them in, because it's quite a bit of material. Anyone who needs a hard copy, if you didn't bring it with you, we'd like to flip through. We do have copies on the back table for anyone, any board members or anyone in the public, if you'd like to follow along as well. The memo and the enrollment reports, everything is right back there if you'd like it. And with that, we turn it over to Ms. Bianco.
Thank you, Dr. Lutzy. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present some information to you this evening on our district staffing and enrollment for this year and future years. As Dr. Lutzy just said, and you received all of the information on Friday, it is voluminous information that hopefully will be useful to you over the course of this year. I'd really like to start by thanking all of the people who spent so much time putting all of it together, and there are many of them, to include Dr. Lutzy. So thank you to him for his feedback and all of the documentation. All of the human resources staff, Lisa Abrams and Lynn Reese, who did a really wonderful job of helping to solicit, organize, edit, revise all of the information that you have in front of you. The cabinet as well, Dr. Carenti, Sean O'Keefe, Bill Tesber, and all of the principals who almost all are here with us this evening to help assist with any questions that might need some answering, as well as some of our district leaders, Dr. Kim and Holly, Alan Sneath and Matt Salvestrini, who also reviewed all of the information and assisted us, and especially Paul Gallo at New Canaan High School, who verified all the information that is contained in the reports. Honestly, this review could not have been necessary without all of the people who put in their time and effort in terms of collecting this information and putting it together. So thank you to everyone. I did not do this. It should be noted for you that all of the information will be posted to the New Canaan Public Schools Board section of the website. So it will be there for the public and for all of us to access should we need it. So we do compile a considerable amount of data, and I want to separate out for you the 4 major sources that you were given on Friday. So the memorandum on enrollment projections analyzes, and that looks like this, analyzes all the information and reports that are provided by our demographer. The information is based on past, present, and some future projection in terms of our school district. And also included are the demographer's charts and their graphs that show our historical enrollment and projected enrollments. The staff utilization and enrollment report, which is the purple colored binder, is a comprehensive look at our certified staffing only for the 22-23 school year. The report includes some summary enrollment data, some staffing data with the FTEs for all levels. FTE stands for full teacher equivalent. So it is the number that's associated with a full body is a 1.0. Including in that part of the report are class sizes for each grades, in faculty leadership positions, administration, and the summary totals for all of those areas. It really does have a lot of uses as a source of information as your year goes forward, especially in terms of the budget season, which is the most wonderful time of the year. Also, there's a staff utilization report that's yellow, and this report has the documentation provided for all the non-certified positions that we have in the school district. There's also a supplemental analyses, which is a paper document that provides additional perspectives on the data in the staff utilization and enrollment report, an FTE comparison of this year with last year, as well as at each level and by department, as well as a look at which classes may be under district guidelines and which are over, and a look at enrollment in special education programs as well. Because the data that we have is presented from several different perspectives, including the different levels of the system, the specific grades, some core and non-core subjects, classes and sections, it's so voluminous. Tonight, my presentation will focus on a review of just the current student enrollment data and our current staffing levels and some of our demographers' enrollment projections. Hopefully by focusing on this, you'll have a clear snapshot of where we stand statistically as of October 1st, 2022. And you may also have a sense of where we might be headed in the future in terms of some of the numbers. So let's start by getting a school district perspective first. When we add to the K through 12 enrollment, the pre-K program, which is at West School, and students who are outplaced, we arrive at the total district enrollment of 4,163 students, compared to 4,133, which was last year's total, and so 30 more than last year's overall total. To give you an idea of the pre-K enrollment patterns, here you see that we have 49 students in our pre-K program. And the numbers for the pre-K program have ranged from 46 in the 2018-19 school year to 39 in the following school year, to 46, to 50, to 49. So we're we're in a consistent range of pre-K numbers. Now we can take a look at each level, and in terms of the elementary level, as I wrote in the memorandum on enrollment projections, our overall enrollment is slightly above the demographer's projection. So this year, our kindergarten came in at 289 students, which was 22 over the projection, and 34 over the previous year of 255. Overall, the elementary enrollment increased by 37 students. And here's a further breakdown by each of the elementary schools. So for this school year, East shows an increase of 25 students, South a decrease of 15 students, and West shows 37 more students than last year. Monitoring of this level is really important as we move forward. We currently have 29 classrooms at East School, 27 classrooms at South, and 28 sections, and that includes the pre-K at West. We have 80 sections in total, K through 4 this year, and an increase of 2 sections from last year. We are up 1 section at East, we are down 1 section at South, and we've increased by 2 sections at West. Our SACS enrollment has had a decrease this year from 1,326 to 1,315, which is a decrease of 11 students. NSDEC has projected the enrollment here to decrease next year to 1,278, and that's a difference of 37 students. The demographer projects the enrollment at SACS to increase to 1,310 in the 2024-25 school year. And even with some projected decreases, SACS will remain in the high 1,200s to low 1,300 range for the next 3 or 4 years. And just for your information, there are 14 grade 5 homerooms and 16 homerooms for grades 6 through 8. This year, enrollment at New Canaan High School is 1,294, and it's projected to decrease next year, according to NSDEC, by 11 students to 1,283. New Canaan High School enrollment is projected to decrease to an anticipated 1,225 during the 2027-28 school year, which is 5 years from now, a decrease of 58 students. In terms of our special education student population, it's increased slightly this year. The prevalence rate this year of 12% is up slightly from 11.8% last year. Our out-of-district placements are at 14, which is the same as last year. And the specific enrollment for special education can be found in the supplementary analyses of the staff utilization and enrollment report. In looking at enrollment and class size guidelines, this chart shows you all that for this year, the percentage of classrooms overall in the district that are at or below board guidelines is very high. As shown on page 1 of the staff utilization and enrollment report, class size guidelines for grades K through 3 classes are 16 through 20. And shown here is that on the elementary level, the percentage of classes at or below guidelines is 99.9%, with only 1 class over guidelines, and that is by 1 student. The guidelines for grades 4 through 8 are 20 to 24. SACS shows many sections under guidelines, about 25%, due to the structure of the team program, as well as some math placement classes. This chart shows SACS at 99.5% within class size guidelines. For the high school, grades 9 through 12, the guidelines are 14 to 24 students per section. 99.8% of classes are within class size guidelines. And overall, we should note that the percentage of classes that are at or below guidelines has remained well above 90% on average, and is relatively consistent over the last 5 years. And I know this has been a focus of the board in the past. As you can see, the number of certified staff increased by 8.9 compared to last year. In terms of East School, we had an additional 1.3 FTE change. At South, we had a loss of 1.6 FTE. At West, we had an addition of 2.3 FTEs. At Saks, we had a 1.1 reduction. And at New Canaan High School, we had an addition of 0.2%. There were reasons for each of those that I won't go into at this point, but you will find all of that information in the documentation. We also had a leadership change of Melinda Meyer, a position that was in the budget for last year. She moved into the District Innovation Coordinator position and is now considered to be an administrator. At this level, overall elementary staffing is at 123.6 in total, which is up from last year's total of 121.6, a net increase in our FTEs of 2.0, or 2 full positions. And again, at East, we had an additional 1.3. At South, we had a deduction of 1.6, and at West, we had an addition of 2.3. And those changes were made based on enrollment changes at each of the schools. In terms of secondary certified staffing, the Saks staffing shows a decrease of 1.1 FTEs. And again, New Canaan High School staffing shows an increase of 0.2 of FTEs. And so for this school year, we are at a total of 1.986 for New Canaan High School and 1.15.3 for Saks. In terms of special education staffing, you'll see here we have had some additional positions. Some were built into last year's budget, and some were funded through grants that were mostly in the area of mental health professionals. Now back to enrollment to look at some of the demographer's projections. The projection of the demographer estimates that the district as a whole will decrease in enrollment for the short term by 32 students. We will go from 4,100 as a total to 4,068. And examined by level, they project an increase of 16 students at the elementary level, and pre-K is not included in these figures. The demographer projects a decrease in enrollment of 37 students next year at Saks, which will take us from 1,315 to 1,278. And they expect the high school to decrease by 11 students, taking us from 1,283 to 1,294. Some of the takeaways from all of this information are that NSDEC's enrollment projection totals from the fall of 2021 came within 2 students of the actual grade K through 12 enrollment, so they're very close. And the enrollment total for October 1st, 2022, 4,098 projected versus 4,100 actual. 0.48%, so less than 1% of difference in terms of the projection and what the actual numbers were, which is a good thing. The factors that are now at work in considering the greatest effect on our future enrollments are the resumption of in-migration, which you will read in the demographer's report, and the increase in number of known births. Both of those have seen somewhat of an increase, and we're all aware of the in-migration during the pandemic. And in looking at live births in the recent past, those have increased as well. So we are going to continue to need to look at that and determine what needs there might be for the school district moving forward. The other takeaway is that our elementary school class sizes are within guidelines and that our programs remain intact and they're pretty well balanced in terms of the short-term plan here. SACS enrollment is projected to remain, as I said, in the low 1300s for the next 4 to 5 years, so that's a pretty stable enrollment projection. And our demographer describes our enrollment from our present numbers in the 2023-24 school year as a slight increase, so less than 1%, 0.78% in the immediate future. And according to their projections, we are entering a period of stable enrollment for the next 3 years. Beyond that, as I have said, in terms of looking at the in-migration and whether people are continuing to move in and the live birth rate, we'll need to keep looking at that very closely in terms of planning for the future. So thank you very much for your attention. And at this point, I have several of my colleagues here if there are further questions that you might have or that I could answer. Okay, good night.
So we'll open it up to any comments. Brendan?
Yeah, I just had a question in looking at the longer-term projections in particular, I'm looking at page 8 of the NSDEC enrollment projection report, and you can see the elementary schools going up to 1,700 plus in 28, 29. And the last, at least that we have on the chart, the high was 1625 for our elementary schools. So I'm just wondering if anyone remembers the highest, at least in our current elementary formulation, the highest enrollment that we had. I remember the 1625 was, we had just about every classroom used. Mm-hmm. But any sense?
Yeah. Dar, if you don't mind, I'll jump in. I would actually, for this conversation, I think I would go back to page 4.
Okay.
Before, just to explain a little bit and talk about
Yeah.
directionality on that question. If you look at page 4, it's the projected enrollments. And if we just look across, you see in the top chart, it says birth year, and then births, and there's a star, and then a blank column, and then school year. And you'll notice that the birth year is 5 years before the school year, right? So when those are the count of known births to New Canaan residents, here in town. So as you look down from 2017, for instance, there were 136 births that were registered for residents of New Canaan here in town, and that turned 5 years later into 289 kindergartners, right? And then you can read across. And then actually, if you take that number, so from 22, 23, this year, those 289 kindergartners, next year are anticipated to go up to 308, and then to 324, to 330, and those projections are all based on historical analysis and, a couple of different factors. So if you go down, you'll see that in 2021 birth year, read to the right, you'll see 201 births. And as we've looked back, that seems to be the highest number of births that we've seen in the projections. We're starting to do a deeper analysis of this now, but the 201. And then if you keep looking down at the births, and you see to the right it says estimated, because that's 6 years, that they're just not born yet. They don't have the totals in 2022. But we look back at last year's 2021 births that were estimated, and it was about 136, if I remember correctly, they were estimating, and it's coming in at 201. So if you read across that row, you get to the 2026-27 school year, and then you go to the kindergarten class size of 397. That, and to my knowledge, is the largest class that we've had come in at kindergarten. And the fact that it's based on known births, not estimated births, has got us starting to really think. Because if you continue down that class, so they're kindergartners in 26, 27, So the 397, the following year in first grade goes to 423, 445, 453, 466, and you can follow those numbers down where it gets up around 500 students in the grade. And I don't believe we've ever had 500 students in a grade. I don't think we've been close to that, certainly in my knowledge and experience. Interestingly, if you keep looking down, go back to just the kindergarten column. After this year, that year hits in 26, 27, there's not another kindergarten year that's below 300 students. Now, that's based on estimated births. Those aren't actuals yet. They don't know. But they are looking at, a variety of factors to make those estimates. And as I mentioned, this year's estimate last year was about 138 students, and it actually is coming in at 201. So when we look at those numbers, specifically, if you just start by looking at the kindergarten class of 26, 27 at 397, we could not accommodate those students given the facilities that we currently have. It's just too many more students than our schools could handle. So one of our sort of questions as we begin to look at this deeper is that going to be a one-year pandemic kind of anomaly with more children and people moving into town, or is it going to be consistent over that with over 300 students in kindergarten? It's the kind of thing you don't know until you know, right? Until you're actually in that year. But those predictions based on the births seem pretty reliable, pretty stable. And if you flip in the same packet to page 9, you see what they call the birth to kindergarten relationship. And Darlene was talking about in-migration, right? And that's folks more people moving into town with children than moving out of town with children. In some towns, the birth to kindergarten relationship is pretty flat. In others, it might be negative. If you have 100 students, maybe 90 of them might enroll in the school because of out-migration. For us, as you can see, you track the births, are actually K enrollment 5 years later is higher. So you can go back to 2007, which was the 12-13 school year. We had about 160 births, and we had about 310 or so enrollments in kindergarten. So they figure out that factor. And they actually have a chart that goes back 40, 50 years as they track this. And I don't believe we've ever been negative. We've ranged from 1.3 or so to 1.6, 1.8, depending upon what the history has been. And again, that's the in-migration. So if we look at real estate, we look at folks moving in, we look at all of the factors that we know influence enrollment. It's got us scratching our head a little bit and thinking about what the solution could be. If it's a one-year blip, that's one approach. If these projections were to hold up over time, it's a more significant need than that. Because really, the way that our schools function, our elementaries run best at a maximum of 6 sections per grade, and the schools barely can accommodate that. As we look across. That's using every room, that's using a science room, that's the max, right, if you were to do that across all grades. And so when you look at, again, going out these 10 years at least, and it's risky, so I'm not saying this is set in stone, but it's the projections that we have. If you looked in the bottom left of page 4, they're projecting the K4 enrollment from this year going from 1491 to 3233 at the bottom of that column to 1743 in our elementary schools. So
It's 1811 in 2030.
And the crazy thing about this is that if you were to look at 31, 32 in this same presentation last year, it would be probably 200 students lower, something like that.
oh yeah,
Right.
because of the births. They were estimating the births at a lower rate than they actually were. So it speaks to younger families moving into town and then having babies.
Right.
Because again, these are births of New Canaan residents that are registered in Connecticut. So they're known. That's a hard
But it
number.
really could be a big jump, and then things could come back lower.
It could be, it could be, right. That we don't know. Their numbers are staying, they're not as high as the 201. If you look down that births column, they're running about 150, 160. But even at about 150, that we're over 300 with that birth to kindergarten ratio. And so as you start to trend these numbers out, you see that it's a stress on our elementary schools that we currently couldn't accommodate. So I think a good next step for the board is to pull together as a resources committee, take a look at this, talk through specifics of the what's available in the building and what this capacity space is, what's there, what the needs might be, and start talking it through. And we may want to look at doing a deeper dive with a different demographer to get a second look at this too. But again, those births are known, so we know that class right now is probably going to be at least pretty close to what they're telling us.
You go.
Do we know the demographics of the folks that are moving into like the parish complex and some of these other complexes that they're proposing in town? Is it single people? Is it couples? Is it people that are they coming in for the schools with young kids?
You know, it's a good question. We don't, with the births, we don't know where they're living when the children are born. We just know that they're here in New Canaan and they're registered in New Canaan. But the estimates here do not account for any developments that don't exist yet. So if there are new proposed developments that may be online, say, you know, in 3 years, that's not baked into these numbers. So that, to my thinking, could only make things go up.
Right. Is there some way for us to find that out? Like, is there people that we can talk to find out who's moving into the parish? Because half of it's already done, isn't it? The one over on 123?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that, and they're shifting over. Yeah, we can speak to and really we look at the number of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom places too.
Right.
To kind of make an estimate around what that is. But yeah, we can talk to, and we find out in kindergarten enrollment for sure, because they're telling us where they live as they do that.
Right. Thank you.
Julie has a question.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. If we do ever reach capacity and have to build out at certain schools, what schools can we build out at? And I know that's not something that's going to happen right away, just in the future. What does that blueprint look like?
You know, that blueprint doesn't exist yet as we look at it. I think that's why the Resources Committee would want to take a good look at it, and we have to look at what some of those options are, whether if it's a temporary thing versus a more of a change just in the overall enrollment trajectory over a longer period of time. So I think we need to study a little bit more to know. I mean, it could be everything from, well, I don't want to even start putting solutions on the table. I think we're at the phase now of recognizing the problem. We want to understand it better, and then we can think of what could be some possible approaches to it.
Thank you.
Katrina?
Did I see somewhere in this, I think I did, there was a commentary around what's also happening in our area as well, that this is just, it's not isolated to New Canaan. The birth rates are potentially up across the board. I don't even know if nationally. Did the demographer comment on that? I thought I saw it.
Yes, you did see that, and it happens to
find it.
be in their letter of analysis on page 2, hidden trends.
Okay.
So there are some comments on specifically what's going on in New Canaan, but there's also section on
Right.
trends in real estate sales. I thought I read in this in and out migration.
Okay, so I guess my point is it's not unique to, I mean, we probably have a higher rate, the projections are likely higher just given the trends we've seen over the years, but, it'll be interesting to follow the analysis more broadly. My question is at West School, the preschool, it's fully subscribed and there's no capacity to increase there as well in the preschool?
The preschool itself is pretty close to capacity.
Okay.
We try and keep it around 50, 55 if we can, but when students move in and if they have needs, then we have to incorporate them into the program.
But it's an important point, because as the number of births increase, you would expect the number of students in need of the preschool services to proportionally increase as well. And, when we have a student in the preschool, we always look for a typical one-to-one, so it's 50-50. So it does have the potential to increase as just the total population of students that age increases. Just one other quick thing to add, if you don't mind, to Katrina's point before. I think it's interesting to look at sort of the surrounding, and Connecticut as a whole has been trending downward. And so if there is sort of an increase over the next couple of years in many towns, they'll likely have the capacity because they'd been going down to begin with, or starting from a lower base. We've been stable for at least the last decade, while a lot of districts have been trending downward slightly. So we don't have that excess capacity that some other places might have if they may be down a couple hundred students from where they were 10 years ago.
Erica?
I had a question about the preschools, because it strikes me that this is going to hit the preschools before it hits us. And just wondering, in the past, I know we've talked about anecdotal information from the preschools. You know, are they filling up? When are they filling up? What wait lists are they maintaining? And I'm wondering, in terms of information sharing with them about these trends.
Yeah, it seems like a good time to open a preschool. We will be sharing this with them. You know, of course, it comes to the board first, and we're beginning to have the discussion. But it's a longer-term problem. Next year, it looks like we're going to be stable for the next actually 2-3 years, as Darlene just shared. You know, it looks okay, and then it's that big jump. But yeah, we do talk with them, and Dr. Krenti speaks with them more frequently.
So we do communicate with the local preschools quite often, but it's interesting when you go back into previous studies that we've done on tracking the preschools, we discover that our kids that come into kindergarten come from about 25 to 30 different preschools. So it reaches so far beyond New Canaan. And so they go through daycare centers as well as Montessori schools. So it really is a wide range. So we can't just rely on the preschools in New Canaan. It's trying to reach further out. We can certainly tell the capacity. They'll let us know that our 4s is filled. We've opened up a 5s. We've opened up another section. We've got a lot of kids in the 3s program. So we have that anecdotal data that comes to us regularly, but it's what's beyond the New Canaan preschools that we don't have our access.
And I can tell you that we already have a waiting list for typical peers for next year's preschool program.
Penny?
So as we look and study this more, and if the trend continues, one of the things I'd really like to know is how many classrooms short, as well as other special spaces, if there are those, do you think we're going to be at each of the elementary schools? Because I think we'll need to analyze what's going on at the different elementary schools and see what our options are for dealing with it.
And, you know, as you can imagine, it's another layer of complexity and another margin of error when you try to take the 400 students and figure out which school they'd be going to for those kindergartners. But certainly we can, you know, we'll do our best, and they do give us those projections, and they do their best as they do them. There's less accuracy there, as you can imagine, because people, you know, everything that comes with moving across town and all those things.
Well, just a general number about how many short we would be.
Yep. And even as we approach, we might get a better sense to the question around, are there families moving into other housing developments in other areas that might increase these numbers even more? So, yeah, we'll do that.
So I think a little bit on Penny's point, like, I don't think that we can absorb or figure out how to deal with the 26, 27 class, right, as far as class size guidelines. But it would just be interesting to see for some of the elementary schools at some of these other adjusted numbers, like if you're basically at like the 301 or the 307, is there, like, are we, if it's what I think I saw, it was 16 to 20, are we closer to 16, are we closer to 20? Like, would we be able to actually fill out maybe a less drastic spike by even staying within guidelines, but just getting to a slightly higher average?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we, as we put that together, we would look at trying to run them at the top, right, 19 to 20, which we do generally do, although there is some migration again in and out even after the school year starts. And this year, like, first grade's a little bit lower than the grades. That's more in the 17s, like mid-17s versus the 19, 20. But yeah, as we do that kind of calculation, we'll take a look. Yep. And again, I think that as a group, we could probably brainstorm possibilities, whether, you know, moving this, doing that, and all of that now, but we're very premature.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where we're just understanding the challenge ahead before we start to think about what we could do about it.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
So I did have one more question.
Yep.
I was wondering, on the 12% identification rate for special needs, what are the types of, I guess, diagnoses or issues that are driving the increase?
It's a modest increase, but it's primarily around LD, learning disabled students. Autism continues to be an area where we see some growth as well. You know, and we're also seeing, again, the OHI with other health impaired around ADHD, ADD is another area. Those would be probably the three biggest areas of growth. And I just very quickly just want to say thank you to Darlene and her staff.
all of this, and especially the staff utilization enrollment report for our certified and our non-certified folks, I think they are anchor documents in our district. They're some of the most important information data that we have, that we can do, and we really work painstakingly with the principals, with the administration across the district, with everybody involved. These documents directly feed into our budget development process as we think about and plan for our staffing, which drives our budget. So the districts all do it different ways here and there, whatever. I've never seen it done better than the way that we do it here in New Canaan. So I do encourage you to take some time to flip through those books, and we bind them and laminate them the way we do because of their importance. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out. But want to commend Darlene and her staff and all the really good work that they do with this, and encourage you to spend some time with it to really understand how the district maximizes our single most important resource, which is our staff, folks that are working with our kids every day.
I would just add, I did go through, particularly at the high school, because it's easier to see, and I was looking at all the sections and all the classes to try to find, are there any areas where potentially, we need to increase staffing for next year, and it's amazingly well balanced. It really is, and you can see there's some peaks, and there's some years in some particular classes that seem pretty full, but it doesn't seem like, and I would love to know that as we go into budget season, are there any, predictions as far as, getting into the next year where we may need to do that? So it looks really good. I will say I was looking for something, I couldn't find it.
All right. So I think next we have Dr. Carenti on the Tri-State Consortium visit.
Well, I'm going to just do a brief update tonight. I did just prepare a few slides just to give you a brief overview of what Tri-State is and when we'll be hosting our visit, which will be coming up in the 23 school year, which is in March. So we're looking forward to it. So I know that Dr. Lutzy gave a brief overview of what Tri-State is, but Tri-State is a consortium. It's made up of a learning community of high-performing school districts who are in the Tri-State region and are committed to continuous improvement. The visits are guided peer reviews, and they're opportunities for districts to receive feedback around an essential question or possibly an entire curriculum overview. It's a variety of different ways that you can host visits for the people that come in. When you have a Tri-State visit, the committee ranges of about 15 people, and they are everywhere from classroom teachers to special area to administrators who come into our district and spend some time here conducting a visit. Certainly the participating districts, as I said, are from Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. In Connecticut, we have 7 districts who you can see are mainly from our DIRG, and then we have 3 districts from New Jersey, and then there's 35 districts from New York. And as you look at some of the examples, it gives you a perspective of the high-performing districts that are coming from New York, everywhere from Ardsley, Bedford, Bronxville, Dobbs Perry, Pearl River, Scarsdale, Somers. So the districts that are in the Tri-State Consortium are very similar to New Canaan. So this year, we are going to be hosting a visit on March 8th, 9th, and 10th, where we will be conducting what we call a consultancy visit. And the consultancy visit is an opportunity for us to gather input on an essential question. So as an administrative team, and certainly as teachers, we decide what we might have an essential question on. Usually it's an area that we've spent time developing and researching, providing professional learning, and we're now at a place where we're trying to gather some input on our feedback. So several years back, we did a Tri-State visit on rigor and engagement in our classrooms, and it really directly related back to our teacher evaluation and professional learning system. So this year, we're going to be hosting a visit. They will come into the Wagner Room here. They'll take over the Wagner Room for 3 days, and then they will be traveling throughout our district. They will be going into elementary classrooms, middle school classrooms, high school classrooms. They'll be interviewing students, teachers, parents, board members, and they'll be trying to gather as much input as they can to give us feedback and where we are in regards to our essential question. And so on the third day, they run a protocol, and you get to listen to them have a conversation about what they observed, what they found, and then they often will make some recommendations for what they see as your next steps. And then they follow up with a written report that we then share with the Board of Education. So this year, we spent a lot of time thinking about our essential question, and we do have a committee of people that is made up of teachers and administrators across the district. And we really wanted to gather some feedback on our student wellness and our student well-being. And so we've spent about 6 years moving forward with our student well-being, and certainly taking a look at how embedded are these practices and approaches that we use within our school communities. And so you'll see on the last page of the PowerPoint that our essential question is, to what extent is our intentional commitment to well-being embedded in our school communities and practices? And then as a committee, we've defined well-being, we've defined embedded practices, and then we've defined what we think of school community. And so those definitions will help to guide them as they're thinking about our essential question. They also have a set of 8 indicators that you also identified 2 indicators that you would also like them to take a look at. So we'll be looking at a shared vision for our students' well-being, as well as professional learning and where we are. As they come in, they're looking always at the 3 different levels. What has been your approach? What has been your implementation? And what has been your results? So certainly, as we think about this question, we went back and we've really had a great conversation as an administrative council about how we've really been focused the last 6 years on student well-being. Everything from where we are with our teacher evaluation and professional learning in our learning community domains, to our SAPL framework, which is our student academic and personal learning, and that is a K-12 framework, to all the work that we've done on emotional intelligence. So now we're at a place where we really would like to know how well have we taken this intentional approach to training staff, working with staff, to teaching students and giving them the instruction, to how well is it embedded within our schools and our school communities. And so we will be asking the Tri-State Committee to look at this question, interview students, parents, staff, board members, and then we also collect evidence. So what might a sample of evidence be? It might be the lessons that we do for connections at the high school. It might be lessons that we do on developing a charter. It might be lessons on the mood meter. And then we also take a look at how well do we handle mental health within our community? How well do we handle crisis when a student's in crisis? And what's the action plans and what do we do for our students? So it really will range a broad area. So everything, and then even just teacher evaluation. What is your learning community? How are teachers engaging students? How are they connecting with students? How do they have conversations within their classrooms? How are they approaching to helping students to move forward academically, socially, and emotionally? We're at the beginning stages. And we'll begin to collect evidence, and then we'd love to come back in January, give you an update of where we are, give you a little sampling of some of the evidence that we've collected, and then we hope that some of you will participate in the interviews when the Tri-State Committee joins us on March 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yep, and I just want to commend Dr. Crenti. She jumped right out of the gate with this. We do this about every 3 years, as you mentioned, and put a team together of folks from all 5 buildings and people that are involved and interested and engaged, and pull them together over a period of a couple of different meetings to help to identify the essential question and to really get to something that we think is a question that we could really receive some actionable feedback as a result of the work. So it's great work and very collaborative across all 5 schools.
Brendan?
To what extent does this sort of sync up with what we're doing with Vision of the Graduate? Does this kind of circle back to that work, or is it more just its standalone analysis?
It would probably be a standalone analysis where they're coming in and trying to answer the question for us and to give us feedback. I'm guessing that, there might be some questions about the results and where we are, but I would hope that maybe through some student interviews, they'll get a sense of how our students might be managing a variety of situations that occur as they're entering into their high school years. We might see some of the reflections from the mastery-based portfolio that might be considered results as we're looking at our high school students. Certainly, it could even just be interviews with kids. How do you resolve an issue during Foursquare? And what's the problems? How do you go about doing that? Or what are the goals that you have academically, and how are you going about achieving those goals? Because it is all about helping students to move forward socially, emotionally, and academically.
Katrina?
Do you expect that we'll have a good sense, like in the results and the reporting, feedback around our staffing models, not just mental health professionals and some of the changes we've made recently, but just as a system, and looking at teacher well-being, looking at student well-being, and how classrooms are run? Is that a part of this?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because we had lots of conversations about the difference between wellness and well-being, and I think the well-being is kind of the state of what we're looking at, and certainly we have a wellness committee for our teachers as well, so that would be part of it. There's so many examples that we have so far of where we would want to collect evidence. It's just a matter of how far we're going to outreach and how we might narrow the focus to try to help us to figure out what our next steps might be. Staffing model might be a great idea, as well as I think it's more about how embedded are our practices? Is it part of the language that teachers use every day with students? It is part of students' language. Do parents have an understanding of what we're doing in the classrooms and having conversations with our kids? Does it help them to regulate their emotions? Does it help them to make better decisions? We look at all that we've done within our health program, so you can imagine that K through 12 and where we stand with some of the different topics that we've integrated within our health program. When we go to teach about anxiety and stress, is it truly helping our students? Or do they just kind of check the box, took that health class, okay, done, ready to move on? And these are kind of the answers that you start to look at. And that's probably where it's going to get tricky to try to get to that result portion of our tri-state visit. And I think that's going to really have to come through probably interviews and possibly student reflections.
Phil, I'm just curious how long we've been in the consortium.
Oh, for a very long time. I mean, since I've been here in the district, well before 2005. And so I got here in 2005, and we were already a member of Tri-State. So we've done quite a few visits here. Some of the visits have been in the area of writing. We've done math, where they've come in and taken a K-12 look at our math curriculum. They've done K through 12 looks at our writing. You can pick a particular grade level too. You could say, I just want you to look at high school writing, or I just want you to look at elementary writing. One of the visits that stands out was even our math visit. So it was really fascinating because one of the results was, your teachers and your administrators are all talking about differentiation, but then when we ask them to define it, like nobody has a district definition of it. Everybody has their own definition, which is really where we came about creating our definition of differentiation of instruction, which is actually created long before we actually did TEPL. And so then you see how we've made changes to that definition and how it's embedded within our teaching framework. So it was a great outcome.
Actually, on that front, how much of this do you feel like it has some overlap or you actually get during the TEPL process? Because presumably some of this, if you're talking about approach and implementation and results, is going to have that dialogue that you're having with, you know, teachers and staff as you go through that.
Yeah, so you would like to think that our teacher evaluation and professional learning is very helpful in helping staff to grow. But when you have an outsider that comes in and looks at it and takes a look at your indicator in regards to the learning domain, sometimes they find something different. And so it's nice to have that critical friend that comes in and takes a look at it. And we found that out even when we were doing student engagement. And when they were coming in and taking a look at monitor student learning within our classroom, which was a particular indicator that we had them hone in on. And so they give you different feedback. They might say, oh, we see lots of consistency among your elementary schools, and then it seems to vary a little bit over at the high school, or it goes by department. So you're really trying to look for that consistency across 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school. And you're also looking to see that it's not just second grade, that it's what happens in a 3rd grade classroom or what happens in a 4th grade classroom or an 8th grade classroom. So it's that consistency of that model.
I guess my other question is on the consortium. What is the makeup of the people that come? Is it like administration and staff from all these other districts, or is there like a subset of people that are like I'm just curious, and I'd also be curious if do we participate in this and go visit other districts?
So yes to both. So there are tri-state visits that are listed, and our staff will sign up to go to tri-state visits and to provide feedback. So the people that go to tri-state visits are certified staff, K-12, and then there's administrators, and those could be anywhere from a cabinet member to a building principal to a director. Who also go to visits. We learn quite a bit when you go off to a visit, so it's kind of exciting because you really immerse yourself, 3 days in that district, and you learn a lot about it, and you come back with good ideas.
Any other comments or questions? So I think we can move on, thank you, to our action items for tonight. And the first action item is the facility and resource enrichment for athletics. Do we have? I don't know if I have.
It was in the Friday packet. I can speak to it briefly. Do you want a motion a second first? You want to speak to it first?
Sure. We can I get a motion to approve a donation of $10,000 from the New Canaan All Sports Booster Club to fund instruction aids and provide facility and resource enrichment for New Canaan High School athletics? Bob, second. Brendan?
Right. Yep, just very briefly, this is for Huddle. Huddle is the program that we use. We had used it exclusively with the football program years ago, and since then, as their capacity expanded, we also grew with it, and now all of our sports are using that. It's our live stream. Our coaches use it with students to cut film for those that are thinking about playing at a collegiate level, things like that. So it's a great program, and the All Sports Booster Club is a big help with this for us. We also were able to use it to analyze film and for coaching and teaching and everything else. So it's a great system. And this is just a way to help us to do that because it is a significant investment on the part of the board. So it's a partnership with the All Sports Booster Club to do this.
Any questions? All in favor? It's unanimous. And then the second action item is the New Canaan High School fall coaching. Can I get a motion to approve a donation of $47,378.92 from the New Canaan All Sports Booster Club to fund additional fall coaching positions? All in favor? Or, sorry, motion, Brendan, second, Katrina?
Briefly, this is for 10 coaching positions. As you know, again, the All Sports Booster Club is a great partner in this, and really guiding belief is that by bringing down the coach to athlete ratio, we're able to provide a higher level of instruction and coaching and teaching with our kids. We're incredibly fortunate to have such an engaged All Sports Booster Club. So this will go to hire coaches. They use our salary chart, our stipend's the same way. So it's not in addition to what we're paying folks. It's new people who are getting, receiving these stipends. And we're very careful. It all runs through Jay, our athletic director. So for Title IX and equity, we're very careful around balancing that across the programs. Thanks for those questions.
Phil, I'm just curious, what sports, if you have any idea, which ones are we allocating the resources to?
I would have to, I don't know, to be honest. I could take a look at that and get the breakdown. But they do provide that backup, but I don't have it with me tonight. Yep. And I guess that it's an important point in that you wouldn't know as a player or as the coach or, anyone who's in the program. You don't know what is budget and what is donated money because everybody, is on the same plane or playing field, if you want to use that metaphor.
I would imagine it flows based on enrollment and signups, registration for different sports, whether, if we can accommodate a freshman team, I know that we always try to include as many kids as possible.
We've even had 2 freshman team in soccer sometimes and things like that where we have to, because the idea is to have as much participation as possible at the sub-varsity levels to give as many students the opportunities as possible. Varsity level is a little bit different. You're always going to, that's the most competitive. You're going to put your best athletes on the field. But at the sub-varsity level, we want to try to accommodate everybody who wants to play. Thank you.
All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. I think we are going to move to comments from the public. Is there any comments? Seeing none, on to announcements and future business.
Great. So just a couple of quick announcements, just to let the board know that I will be following up with Jeff from Battelle for Kids sometime next week. We have something scheduled so that we can actually talk through the round 1 slides as we had discussed in our workshop about a week ago. So that follow-up will happen in about a week, and then I'll report back to the board and let you know where we are and what the next steps may be. As everyone knows, tomorrow schools are closed to students. It is voting day across the country. I want to say a special thank you to the registrars. They had a lot to adapt to this year. Our volleyball team had made the states, and so it's a home volleyball game, and we did everything we could to make it as early as possible, and I know that puts some pressure on the registrars getting things set up, and I want to say thank you to them. I also hadn't thought about the impact of changing our start and end times on the registrars, but as you may know, they're at Saks this year, and they're also over to East as part of the new redistricting of the town. And so those schools ending later, certainly Saks ending later with that 3:45 conclusion to the lower division, again, put some stress on them and made it tougher. So I want to say thanks to the registrars and all the volunteers and everybody for helping to make all of that work. And we'll keep learning from it and see what we can do to fine tune. But we always hope that our teams will be in the postseason, and we want to congratulate our volleyball team. And they wanted and needed to have that game here in the gym where they practice and play as the home court advantage. Unfortunately, I don't have great news to share. They didn't win tonight, so their season ended, but it ended on their home court. Tomorrow is a professional learning day across the district, and so we have Dr. Stuart Ablon coming down from Harvard. As a matter of fact, he's here. He's spending the night next door in Norwalk, and we'll be jumping over here in the morning. He'll be meeting with our entire certified staff, and we've invited our teaching assistants and others to join us as well for the morning session, which will be a 3-hour session here in the auditorium. And then we'll be meeting in smaller groups in the afternoon with our mental health team, with our administrative team about follow-up. And then tomorrow night, open to all, free of charge at 7 o'clock, he'll be presenting to the community. We've put that invite out. We've been using our website and social media, everything to let people know. I really do hope it's well attended. The title of his presentation is How Collaborative Problem Solving Changes Lives at Home and at School. And the presentation he's going to share is based on books that he's written and really is grounded in his neurology, his neuropsychology. He is the associate professor of child and adolescent psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. He teaches up there as well. He works up there and does quite a bit. He's been, you may have seen, he was rated one of the top 5 speakers worldwide in this arena, in academic arenas around this. So he was a good get, I think, for the community and for all of us here. And we look forward to learning some really hands-on strategies that'll help our staff with kids during the school day, and certainly help parents outside of school. And it's really a very positive message and an empowering message around just, collaborative work with kids and others. So excited for that and hope that folks can come. And we thought 7 o'clock on voting day would be great, so people could get here a few minutes early, get their vote in, and then come down to see us. If the place empties out at 7:50, then we know that a few people procrastinated, but so be it. I also, just with that, I want to thank the PTCs, the PFA. They've contributed to helping make this happen, as has New Canaan Cares and the New Canaan Community Foundation. So it really is a community effort to bring them in, and hopefully we have a good showing here. We would have been over at Saks, which is a better auditorium for something like this, but because of the voting and the gym and the access and parking, we felt like it would be better to do it here at the high school for that reason. So that's why we're here. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get the motion to adjourn? Phil, second. Penny? Unanimous? Thank you.